I'm Roman Yossi of the Nashville Predators.
I'm Matt Duchesne of the Nashville Predators.
I'm Justus Aros of the Nashville Predators.
I'm Ryan Johansson of the Nashville Predators.
You're listening to the Renegades of Puck
with Crazy Charlie.
Welcome to the bunker. Welcome to the Renegades of Puck podcast. I'm your host and captain, Crazy Charlie Saunier, and before we get started on the no half-step in hockey coverage, let me direct you to our home website, renegadesofpuck.com. Once you go to renegadesofpuck.com, you'll get all educated about the show, and then you can click on that merchandise tab. That's where you'll find the classic logo t-shirt, the Pride logo t-shirt, and 5 or 6 other t-shirt designs, as well as all the great gimmicks you've come to know and expect from the Renegades of Puck. Socks, wall art, throw pillows, we've got it all. Outfit your entire home or your entire self for the holidays. We sure would appreciate if you would do that. We've sold out so that you can buy in. Social media, critical, important to help our operations out. Please give us a like, a subscription, pass around a link. Any of that will help us out tremendously. You can find us on social media at Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. You can find the podcast in video form on YouTube. You can find the podcast in audio form on Stitcher, on Spotify, on Google, on Amazon, and several other podcast platforms. We sure would appreciate if you would give us a follow along on each or any of those. You can become a partner of the show by going to Venmo and searching Renegades of Puck, or just scanning the QR code that's currently on your screen. We sure would appreciate any donations you can spare, especially as we're heading into the brand new year. We've been able to make significant upgrades thanks to generous Renegades just like you. New microphone, new lights, new everything here in the bunker, and we sure do appreciate the assistance. Being an independent operation is not the easiest thing in the world, and we do need funds to help keep the operation moving along. So thank you very much to each and every one of you who have donated. Anything goes a long way to helping us. Now it's time for the no half-step in hockey coverage, so let me deliver the goods. It's time for operation number 686. That's right, show number 686 for the Renegades of Puck. And at this moment in hockey history, the Nashville Predators currently find themselves at 5th place in the Central Division. After 26 games played, they have a record of 12, 11, and 3, 27 points, has them 3 points behind 4th place Colorado, 5 points behind 3rd place Minnesota, and 10 points behind Winnipeg and Dallas. For 1st place, Winnipeg holding the tiebreaker over Dallas by playing 2 fewer games. Winnipeg is currently in 1st place. Just below the Nashville Predators with the same amount of points is the St. Louis Blues. 5 points below the Preds. In 7th place is the Arizona Coyotes. And 9 points behind the Nashville Predators at this time is the Chicago Blackhawks in last place in the Central Division. The Preds have a goal differential of -12. They scored 67 on the season, giving up 79. And on home ice, they have a record of 7-4-2. That's where their next game will take place. It'll be the second of 3 meetings this season against the Edmonton Oilers. Going back to November the 1st, the Preds fell in Edmonton 7-4. It was Vander Kane with 3 goals in that game. McDavid 2 goals and 2 assists for 4 points. Draisaitl had a goal and 4 assists for 5 points. The Nashville Predators and the Edmonton Oilers will meet one more time at Bridgestone Arena, and it's coming up very quickly. It's coming up on December the 19th. Let's go over the next bit of games for the Nashville Predators just to catch you up on that. Thursday, the Preds will be in Winnipeg, Saturday in Colorado, and then Monday back home to face off against the same Edmonton Oilers again, and then going into the Christmas break, the 21st of December in Chicago, and then back home and the 23rd versus the Colorado Avalanche. Now, for the Edmonton Oilers, they are 16-3-0 on the season. They have 32 points, are 4th overall in the Pacific Division. On the road, they have a record of 7-6. They have 103 goals for on the season, and they have a +4 goal differential, which means they've given up plenty of goals as well. Let's take a look at their most recent stretch of action. Let's go back just 5 games. Back on December the 3rd, it was a 5-3 victory versus Montreal. Follow that up on the 5th with a 3-2 loss versus the Washington Capitals. On the 7th, it was an 8-2 victory versus the Arizona Coyotes. And on the 9th, a 5-2 win versus Minnesota. And just a couple of hours ago, a 2-1 loss at Minnesota. Skinner was in net, took the loss, 28 out of 30 in that game. Now, for the Nashville Predators, it's about more than the standings. It's about more than the rankings between these two teams right now. They are starting to deal with some significant roster issues, as now 4 of the season-starting 7 defensemen are out on injured reserve. Luzon, who we thought was going to be out for some significant amount of time, is day-to-day at this time. Carrier is listed as week-to-week. McDonough 1 to 3 more weeks, and Borowiecki is on injured reserve. So the Nashville Predators have 4 of their defensemen that they came into the season with currently out injured. They also have another roster move, and we'll discuss analysis and thoughts and opinions on it later. But for now, just give you the facts on this. Tolvanen was waived by the Nashville Predators, and he has been claimed by the Seattle Kraken. So Eeli Tolvanen, his development with the Nashville Predators comes to a screeching halt as he is no longer on the Nashville Predators, and now he will look forward to his future with the Seattle Kraken. Now, getting back to the game at hand, the NHL ranks between these two teams are staggering how different that they are. The Edmonton Oilers are 5th best in the NHL in goals in a game, 3.64 per game, while the Nashville Predators are 29th in the NHL, 2.50 per game. In goals against, the Preds have given up 3 per game this season. That's 14th in the NHL, while the Edmonton Oilers have given up 3.46. That's 23rd in the NHL, but they score so many they can easily overcome that, and they often do. Shots for the Nashville Predators are 24th in the NHL, generating 29.9 shots per game on the net, while the Edmonton Oilers are 14th, generating 32 on the net. In shots against, the Preds are 32.8 per game. That is 10th in the NHL. The Edmonton Oilers are giving up 33.4 shots against per game. That is 6th in the NHL. In the special teams ranking, it is no surprise when I tell you this. The Edmonton Oilers have the best power play in the NHL. They've converted 31 times out of 101 opportunities at 30.7%, while the Nashville Predators are quite the opposite. 16% conversion rate, 29th overall in the NHL, and they've converted 15 out of 94 times. On the penalty kill, the Preds do have the better overall NHL ranking in this category. They've given up 20 power play goals against, all rated 18th in the NHL, while the Edmonton Oilers have given up 31 power play goals against, are rated 27th in the NHL. But again, they can and have plenty of times overcome this deficient statistical metric. Individual statistics are another area. Piece together. Individual statistics are another area where these two teams have a absolute wide and large disparity. Connor McDavid leads the Nashville. Individual statistics is another category where these two teams have a very wide margin and disparity between them. Connor McDavid would not only be leading the Nashville Predators in scoring, he leads the Edmonton Oilers and the entire NHL in scoring at this time. 25 goals, 29 assists, 54 points. Draisaitl at 19 and 27 for 46. Nugent Hopkins 14 and 19 for 33 points. Hyman 9 goals, 19 assists for 28 points. And Barry 4 goals and 14 assists for 18 points in net. Since Skinner played just last night, Campbell is probably going to get the start at Bridgestone Arena. 7-6-0 on the season, 8.72 save percentage, 4.12 goals against average. Now, the other side of the lever, the Nashville Predators, well, their statistics are not looking so good on the offensive side of things. Forsberg, 8 and 15 for 23. Duchesne, 6 goals, 15 assists for 21 points. The captain, Roman Jossi's at 6 and 15 for 21. Mikael Granlund, 4 goals and 14 assists for 18 points. And Ryan Johansson, 7 goals and 8 assists for 15 points. Kevin Lankinen expected to get the start after UC Saros played in St. Louis. A record of 33-0 on the season, 934 save percentage, 2.27 goals against average. For the Nashville Predators, they have had incredible difficulties against this Edmonton Oilers team in recent history, especially in the McDavid and Draisaitl era. Those two players seem to absolutely feast on the Nashville Predators. The second night of back-to-back for both teams having to travel into Nashville. We'll see what we get going into this game, but it sure feels like the Nashville Predators might be feeding themselves into a wood chipper feet first, coming back home to go up against the Edmonton Oilers, as depleted as they currently are on the defensive side of things. Even when they have the full cast of characters out there on the blue line, they struggle to keep the Edmonton Oilers from just having their way at any time. For the Nashville Predators, this is going to be an incredibly difficult stretch of hockey. A lot of very good teams coming up on the schedule. That gets you all set up for the next game with the Nashville Predators. Quick turnaround, less than 24 hours. Head back from St. Louis. Come on home and face the Edmonton Oilers. Speaking of that St. Louis game, we've got the Rebirth Sports full game recap coming up, and it's next. Rebirth Sports, check out their work, rebirthsports.com, or find them on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Very easy to find them, and they're very interactive, very good people, and I certainly love having a partnership with that crew. You see me wearing the Renegades of Puck home jersey right here in the bunker. You see me wearing the road jersey, the third jersey. Just last night, skating with the Mighty Drunks here in Middle Tennessee in the Middle C Division. Got a chance to pull on the red, white, and blue Rebirth Sports Mighty Drunks jersey good-looking threads out there at the rink got asked multiple times, where did that jersey come from? And I had to tell them, of course, because I love having the conversation. Came from Rebirth Sports. Sure to appreciate them. They take visions, make them reality, and they are certainly not jersey makers. They are hockey tailors. So check out their work, rebirthsports.com. Go back to December the 12th, the year 2022, and the Nashville Predators were in St. Louis to take on the St. Louis Blues. Philip Forsberg, Mikhail Granlund, Matt Duchene are the first line, deployed by John Hines. Niederreiter, Johansson, and Citizens make up the second line. Trennan, Parson, and Jeannot. Smith, Glass, and Jankowski, your defensive pairings, and this is going to sound considerably different than usual. Yossi and Gross are your top pair. Ekholm and Fabro are your second pair. Gravel and McEwen make up your third defensive pairing for the Nashville Predators. UC Saros gets the start in net. We are just 5 seconds into the first period of the game, and Binnington has to come up with a save on Fabro. It's the first shot on goal of the game. Clean face-off win by the Nashville Predators. They get the puck in deep. It goes in on net. 2 minutes into the game, UC Saros comes up with his first touch of the game. It is a save on Torachenko. 4:03, Binnington a save on Yossi. 4:17, first penalty of the game is Johansson. 2 minutes for tripping. Strong PK, lots of block shots by the Nashville Predators. Really good to see the Preds out there working as hard as they were. 7:59, Saros comes with a save on Pitlick through traffic. 9:49, Binnington comes with a save on Niederreiter's jam wrap around attempt. Then Bortuzzo's off the box. 2 minutes for roughing after the whistle. Not much happening for the Nashville Predators. Power play, they would only be able to generate one shot on goal. 14:18 in the first period. UC Saros comes with a save on Thomas. 15:16, Schen's off to the box. 2 minutes for boarding, and this was a really vicious looking hit right here. Binnington comes with a save on Johansson from the slot, and that's all the Nashville Predators would be able to generate on this power play. 17:28, Johansson off to the box again. 2 minutes for slashing. Another strong PK by the Nashville Predators, giving up 0 shots against. We hit the end of the first period. Lots of penalties, but not much else. St. Louis outshoots Nashville 9-7 in the first 20. We hit the second 20. We're 59 seconds in, and Binnington's coming with a save on Duchene off the rush at 4:05. Johansson is off to the penalty box. He's got the hat trick in all the worst ways of 3 minor penalties already in just 24 minutes of game time. 2 minutes for goalie interference, but this was just a little bit of a different situation, as we all saw Binnington take the absolute flop, and then we have to see UC Saros coming up with a save on Falk on the shorthanded situation while Ryan Johansson sits in the box for the third time of the night. 6:15 in the second period, Binnington comes with a save on Johansson out of the box, and a rebound on Yossi crashing the net hard. Now listen, if this play had worked out perfectly where Johansson takes 3 minor penalties and gets out of the box and gets sprung for a goal, then you might have seen him try this more often, but I don't think it's a very successful plan to try to generate offense. But I'll take any options at this point. I'll take anything at this point. 6:55 in the second period, Binnington comes with a save on Forsberg. 7:05, McCullough's off to the box. 2 minutes interference. The Blues had the best chance on this shorthanded opportunity. The power play is 0 for 3 now at this point in the game versus the 32nd rated penalty kill in the NHL. 11:31, we're past the halfway point of the game with 0 score. 11:31, Binnington gets with a save on Forsberg. The rebound trickles just wide of the post. This was a tricky little roller. 13:25, Saros comes up with a save on Krug's long shot. 14:09, Parayko goes out to the box. 2 minutes for cross-checking. Another really, really hard hit along the wall that draws a penalty in a power play for the Preds. They generate more zone time, just wouldn't generate any results. 0 for 4 on the power play now against the worst penalty kill team in the NHL. Strong shift after the power play, maybe their best shift of the entire game, but everything was kept to the outside. They could not get any shots through the net. The Preds would maintain pressure for the rest of the period. 19:39 of the period, Parson would get his stick checked while he was attempting to tuck the puck into a wide open net. That might have been the Preds' best look near the net of that entire period. We go to the intermission. The Preds are now out shooting the St. Louis Blues 16-13. We go to the third period, still no score. 21 seconds into the third period, Binnington comes with a save on Parson. Parson was flying all over the place towards the end of the second period, beginning of the third period. Trennan follows up that play, and a strong shift overall for that entire line. 5:03 into the third, Saros comes with a save on Falk. 7:43, Saros a save on Barbashev, and then we go the other way. The Nashville Predators start generating some pretty decent offense for a few minutes. 10:51 into the third, Binnington comes with a save on Jankowski at close range. 11:49, a save on Parson's jam ×2. 16:42, Binnington back to work again on Ekholm. Stops him with the elbow. The game had to be stopped at this point because Binnington went down. That was a nasty, hard, heavy shot that caught Binnington right there on the elbow. 19-19 of the third period. Bennington comes up with one more save in regulation. That's on Dante Fabro. We hit the end regulation. The Predators out shooting St. Louis Blues 24-20. So the Nashville Predators hold the St. Louis Blues to just 11 shots on goal in the final 40 minutes of gameplay. We hit the 3-on-3 overtime. We're 13 seconds in. UC Sarks comes with a save on Falk on the 2-on-1. 53 seconds in. Bennington comes with a save on Duchesne, who went 1-on-3, getting a dynamic scoring opportunity. 147. Saros comes with a save on Kyrou, but at 2:25, it's Shen ending this game with the rebound, put back his 7th of the season. Gives the St. Louis Blues the one and only goal of the game, defeating the Nashville Predators 1-0 in overtime. Final shots on goal, 25 for Nashville, 24 for St. Louis. Predators do get a point. They hold off the St. Louis Blues for the battle for 5th place in the Central Division. I guess you'll take small victories and small gains where you can, but a night where the Nashville Predators certainly let many opportunities slip away from them. And we've got a lot to talk about. There is a lot going on with this team, and there are some things that are really starting to slip right here. We'll get to it. We've got a lot of opinion. We've got a lot of analysis. We've got a lot of stats coming up here in the next segment. That was the Rebirth Sports full game recap. We'll be right back with some stats, analysis, and the Renegades of Puck. Strong Style Fitness is a great partner here of the Renegades of Puck, and we love our partners. Strong Style Fitness can be found online, social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Instagram is their preferred method of communication when it comes to social media. StrongStyleFit.com is where you can find the website. 150 workouts by a certified personal trainer, completely free to each and every one of the Renegades of Puck. Just go to YouTube and search Strong Style Fit, and you'll be able to find those, whether it's your first step off the couch, your first workout, or you've been at it for years. Tracy has a workout that is designed and dedicated to each and every one of you out there. She just wants to get you moving and get you motivated and keep you healthy. She has provided all of these workouts on her YouTube channel completely for free. So Renegades of Puck, in a world that is becoming increasingly more expensive every day, take advantage of an opportunity to have the Renegades of Puck personal trainer at Strong Style Fitness. Great partner here of the show. Now, look, there's not going to be a lot of chipper demeanor when it comes to the analysis of this one, and I think you can understand why. There's a lot going on around the Nashville Predators right now, and not a lot of it is a very positive thing. I'm going to try to go through it. I'm going to try to share some opinions and some analysis without being too hyper or overcritical, as I'm already seeing some people be. But I do have some fairly big topics that I want to address in here. Let's start with the game analysis and work our way out from there. UC Saros in this game takes the loss in overtime, 23 out of 24. And what the hell is he supposed to do? He kept his team in this one. The team in front of him played good defense. The Nashville Predators simply cannot generate any offense. For UC Saros, I can't knock him for giving up one goal in 3-on-3 overtime. Even the bunker is upset about the offense. The defensive effort for the Nashville Predators, it was obvious and noticeable and improved from previous games. Yes, they did a hell of a job out there on offense, blocking shots, turning pucks towards the outside, keeping things out of the high danger area. All of that is tremendous. It's all great, but it means nothing at the end of the game if you cannot put the puck onto the net offensively. It simply isn't going to work. Defensive effort was there and it was excellent, but it's not enough to win a game. You can't win a game without scoring a goal, and that's what leads to the next 2 points. This offense is terrible. Last year, you had a defenseman with 90-plus points. You had 2 forwards with 40-plus goals. All 3 of those players are still on the team, and this team offensively is just stagnant, putrid. Whatever you want to come up with as a descriptor, they're just bad, and I don't know how they're going to turn the corner around. And now that they're starting to reevaluate and move on from certain players that could have helped the offense, well, we'll get to that more in a second. But the offense, it's terrible, and I don't know when it's going to turn around or how it's going to turn around. But 67 goals in the season, 29th in the NHL in goals per game at 2.50. You're barely hanging in there with last-place teams in your own division and in the Eastern Conference. The offense, it's terrible. And you know what's actually worse than the Predators' main offense is their power play. 0 for 4 tonight against the worst-rated penalty kill in the NHL. Just think what they could have accomplished if they could have just scored one time out of 4 opportunities on the power play. The power play was actually not that bad last year. That's another reason that this is such a nuisance and such an annoyance to anybody who follows the team and covers this team. They're just not good offensively right now, and they have to do something to change this up. They have to fix it, and that leads to bigger things that I'm starting to get into right here. Now, Tolvanen is waived from this team. I don't really understand, and I'll take you through the arc of his development very quickly. First-round draft pick, brought in at the end of the season, got some minutes on the power play, showed potential to snipe from over on the left wing near the face-off circle, has a really great shot. Last year, he was asked to round out his game, and it looked like he was doing that, everything but scoring. Coaches were raving about his performance. Coming into this season, we anticipated he would compete for a top 6 forward roster spot. He didn't even get a chance to compete really for ice time this season. Now the Nashville Predators have given up on Eeli Tolvanen, and I do have to say, as quickly as he was claimed by the Seattle Kraken, to hear some anonymous behind-the-scenes reports that people in the Nashville Predators office thought that he was going to go unclaimed. He already has NHL experience as a former first-round draft pick and proved that he can score at this level. I think you gave up on him too soon. Time will, of course, tell. Seattle Kraken, I think, got themselves a diamond in the rough, and Eeli Tolvanen is going to move on to Seattle now and put Nashville far in his rearview mirror like so many other of the Nashville Predators draft picks and prospects have done over the last few years, and it's a failure of this team to draft properly and a failure to develop. Askarov is the one player that is off to the side of this conversation because he appears by all means that he is going to be a star at the NHL level someday. He's proving to be a star in his first season at the AHL level, and I hope he's going to be a star at the NHL level someday. But what is this team doing when it comes to drafting and developing players? There are not nearly enough draft picks making it all the way through Milwaukee to Nashville. The old saying, you got to go through Milwaukee to get to Nashville. Players are barely even making it out of Milwaukee anymore. Some of the misses over the last couple of years have just been staggering, and now to see Tolvanen be a part of that list, it's just not going to sustain this team moving forward and building. With all of those big contracts you have at the top end for so many years, you have to rely on good drafting and good player development. And now Tomasino is back down in the minor leagues. Tolvanen has been cut, and there are others, and there are others, and there are others. And now listen, that leads to the pressure building, and you know, there is new ownership that is getting set to take over this franchise, and we've seen Haslam in the building. We've seen him at training camp, and when exactly does he start to put his thumb and his weight on the scale about the next direction of the Nashville Predators and the future of this team? David Poile, John Hines, how much time do either of them truly have left? David Poile has to have an exit strategy at some point, and his exit strategy cannot be handing the job over to Brian Poile. That is simply unacceptable. The general manager's job of the Nashville Predators should not be something based on nepotism or based on some type of King Dynasty GM family in the Poiles. They have never won a Stanley Cup. John Hines, his seat is getting hot and getting quickly. What he used to preach and the messages he used to deliver all the time, they are falling on deaf ears. The team is simply not responding and not performing, and it happens quick at this level. Peter Laviolette got in trouble and then all of a sudden was gone just like that. This next stretch of hockey going into the holiday season could be very difficult for John Hines if the team does not start performing at a better level. Yes, they are 12-11-3, and that is technically over 500, but is there anything about this team that is encouraging moving forward? What are they competing for? Fifth in the Central Division? I make a joke about the battle of fifth place between the St. Louis Blues and the Nashville Predators, but is that really all they're competing for? A chance to maybe be wild card number 2 and go up against the Colorado Avalanche again in the first round of the playoffs? If that's all this team is competing for, the new ownership should bring in a new general manager, a new head coach, and this team should finally undergo a full reboot. New ownership is on its way coming soon. It's not as far off as people think. So for all the complaining, stop and consider for just a moment that new ownership usually means bringing in their own people and going in their own direction. I don't know if anything will remain unchanged when it comes to this Nashville Predators team. Now listen, Sean C. Smith has a lot to say as well, and a lot of opinions and a lot of analysis. So from A to Z Sports, you can find him on Twitter at SCSNSH. Let's go ahead and throw it over to Sean C. Smith right now.
Thanks, Charlie. Hey, it's Sean C. Smith, Renegades, and I'm here to talk about tonight's unfortunate overtime loss of the St. Louis Blues. Let's say this. Let's look at the bright sides. The Predators put on a very, very, very solid defensive showing. And while there were a few things that I would probably think need to be corrected, there were a lot of penalties from Ryan Johansson for some reason. It looked like the team was playing a strong defensive game, but also managed to get a lot of good looks on Binnington, even getting pretty close to scoring a few goals. Anyway, here's the thing. End of the night, 3-on-3 overtime. It's sudden death. That shot goes right off of Saros. It just takes an odd angle, just leaving the net wide open. There was really nothing that could have been done aside from just hoping that dude totally missed. And Shin didn't miss. He scored. Game ends immediately. An unfortunate end, but I'm going to look on the bright side because we need some bright side right now. And they came away with one of the 2 points. Now, let's talk about some other things. I got a few things to talk about that probably aren't the greatest things in the world. One of those is going to be that the Predators play the Edmonton Oilers tomorrow night at home. That's right. One day after they played the Blues, they're playing a team that has been able to kill them with speed. And here the Predators come back home on the tail of a back-to-back where they've had a day of travel in between. It's never a good sign. And I'll probably say this, and it'll probably come back to haunt me, but everything is set up for the Predators to get blown out against the Oilers. Now that I say that, they're probably going to come back and win 8-1 or something crazy like that. But it doesn't matter because there are some other things we need to talk about. One, oh boy, lots of problems defensively. And I'm not talking about play on the ice. I'm talking about the Predators have 4 injured defenders right now, leaving them with 4 healthy defenders, and they've had to call up 2 more defenders, giving them a total of 2 guys on IR, 8 guys on the roster, and only 6 eligible to play, and those 6 all played. Now, of course, they look good. That's a bright side, right? That's a bright side. Both guys look good. They kept a pairing together from Milwaukee with Roland McEwen. We're not really sure how to say that one. I've seen it, heard it a lot of different ways. And Kevin Gravel. They looked fine. They looked solid. As long as they're up, I would say expect that kind of play from them. They're going to play limited minutes. They're going to play smart hockey. They're going to focus on defending. And I think they did a pretty good job of that. Can't complain about those guys. That also means that Alexander Carrier and Jeremy Lauzon are on day-to-day and week-to-week with upper body injuries. Not exactly what you want to see, especially considering some of the other things. Michael McCarron has entered the NHL's Player Assistance Program. And look, most of the time you don't get a reason why unless the player decides to share that reason. With Connor Ingram, he decided to share that reason, and that was why everybody knew why Connor Ingram was in the Players Assistance Program. Look, McCarron deserves his privacy. We need to just wish the best for him and hope that he's getting the help he needs to get better and get on with his life and get back to the ice. Now, at the same time, Eeli Tolvanen waived, picked up by the Seattle Kraken, and I did see a report that said that internally the Predators were fairly certain that Tolvanen would clear waivers, which kind of flies in the face of the common knowledge of much of the fan base who was not happy with that decision. And I'll say I was among those who didn't think Tolvanen would clear waivers, and I'm not 100% sure I believe those reports that they thought he would clear. Don't really know what's going on there. Haven't really a clue to tell you why. No one's going to give anything up unless Tolvanen comes out in his first time talking to Seattle and just straight up tells everybody why. But fact of the matter is Tolvanen's gone. Predators currently have 12 forwards on the roster. All 12 of them play tonight, and they're in a little bit of a cap crunch with the defender situation. So you may not see another forward added anytime soon until you start seeing some of those players come back from upper body, day-to-day, long-term injury. All of those things kind of leading to a fun situation for the Predators where they're kind of taxed on how many guys they can have on the team. But as it stands, against the Blues, they played them about even. I feel like they could have won that game. They ended up with a tie. It is what it is. Really curious to see how things go against the Edmonton Oilers. Really curious to see how this week plays out with a lot of big games coming up. Charlie, I've talked about the good. I've tried to be positive. I've talked about the bad and tried not to get too negative. That's all I got for you tonight. I'm going to send it back over to you.
Stripe Digital Solutions is another great partner of the Renegades of Puck, and I sure do appreciate everything Stripe Digital Solutions does for us here in the trenches. Check out their work, stripedigitalsolutions.com, or online, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You see the crest that is on the jersey right here. You see the logo on the wall behind me, the website, renegadesofpuck.com, our social media and brand building plan. All of that is managed by and through Stripe Digital Solutions. We could not succeed on any level in the current world the way it functions without a strong digital partner, and Stripe Digital Solutions is the strongest digital partner. I urge and encourage each and every one of you to reach out to Brandy and start the conversation today. I think that my website is fantastic. My logos, my graphics, I think everything is wonderful, and that is because I have visions and ideas, and then they are whittled down by Stripe Digital Solutions into something that actually is coherent and makes sense on the screen. They do incredible work, and I encourage each and every one of you, check out Stripe Digital Solutions today. He's got the numbers you need to know and the charts you need to see from ontheforecheck.com. He's the one and only Brian Baston. Brian stepped up and filled in his forechecker one the other night, was in the trenches late into the evening with me, and I sure do appreciate him for doing that. Stick taps to you, BB. Sure do appreciate you filing this report. I know that you have a lot to say, so let me turn it over to you right away. Here's Brian Baston from ontheforecheck.com.
Well, another game and another disappointing loss for the Nashville Predators, this time being shut out by Jordan Binnington and the St. Louis Blues in a game that Nashville really needed to have. The rest of this calendar year is not going to be kind for Nashville, and right now I can only see maybe 3 or 4 points realistically for Nashville in the rest of these games, as they've got Edmonton tomorrow, Colorado a couple more times. I mean, there's very good teams on the docket, and this Predators team does not look prepared for any of them at all. So let's talk about, we've talked about this game a little bit. I have one big stat for just this one game, and we'll talk about Juuso Parssinen. He had an excellent game. He was he had more expected goals than anybody on either side of the ice with .74, which is extremely good, with 5 scoring chances and 4 high danger chances. So Juuso Parssinen had a great game. He created 2 rebounds as well, which is excellent. Hopefully we'll see more out of him. But we're talking about this team, and this game was just, we saw what it was. It was rough, but it was bad because of offense. It was bad for a lot of reasons, and we're going to talk about those reasons in the large scale of things, because it's time for even me, the guy who tries to find a reason to look on the bright side of things, to talk about the mismanagement of this team so far this season by John Hynes and the Nashville front office. So let's get into that. Now, there's a lot of things about this team that don't add up, as many of you can see. You guys have watched the games, you can see it. There's a lot of things, but I want to kind of talk about a few of these things. And all of these either relate to either coaching or asset management by General Manager David Poile. So let's talk about one that has stuck in my craw a little bit this season. It may not have necessarily much to do with this until later, but let's talk about the myth of the Nashville is coming off of a long break between games. It plays a little rustier. Let's talk about that. So this season, the Nashville Predators have played 5 games where they have had 3 or more days between games. So we're going to count the season opener against San Jose, since there's a lot of days. But there are also 4 more games in which they had 3 or more games of a break. In those games, the Predators are 3-2-0, so that's actually pretty good. They've got a 60% point percentage. However, you would think that this is a team that has had 4 days break. They've had extra time to be coached up. They can game plan a little bit more for the following opponent. Their power play percentage in those 5 games is just 6.7 attempts, averaging 3 opportunities a game, 6.7 on the power play. Just indescribably bad. Also on the penalty kill, 69%, which is not nice at all, and it is the worst of all those games over this stretch. Now, as we move down, we start looking at these games where there's less and less time. Now is where you would see that myth of, well, if this team, it hasn't played for a long time, they play a little rustier, but they play better once they get into the swing of things. So let's talk about when they've had 1 or 2 games in between, 1 or 2 days between games. So with 2 games between, wow, I'm getting all mixed up. with 2 days between games. They've played 4 of those games, and in those games they are 1-2-1. Obviously not great. But they do average a 21% on the power play there and an 85% on the penalty kill. So that's something, but that's only a handful of games. Now, for the most of these games are 15 of them. 15 out of all the games in Nashville has played have been games where there's only been a single day of rest. Now, this team is 6-7-2 in those games. Again, they've had less time, so if they're more rusty when they've had a lot of time off, then they should be better, which they're not. They're obviously not. The power play is 15%, which is worse than what their season average is, which is still awful. Penalty kills at 78%, also not great. But then when you look, oddly enough, they've had 2 games where they've come off 0 days rest. So 2 games on the back end of a back-to-back, and hey, they're undefeated, 2-0, 33% on the power play on 6 total chances. So yeah, that's pretty good. But if you still look at this, though, it tells you one thing. One, that having the extra time doesn't seem to be really the case for why this team plays badly. In 5 of those games, they 3-2, but they were awful on the power play, meaning if they didn't have all that time to practice the game plan for that specific opponent's penalty kill style and to work on the power play, all that extra time, you can spend a ton of it in practice. That points to a coaching thing for me. So let's move on a little bit. Now, on this team, we've talked about how badly the team has struggled on offense. I mean, it's god-awful. They are right now 31st in the NHL in goals for. 31st. Not good at all. But let's talk about what they have on this team. Now, oddly enough, if looking at the breakdown of the team, if you look at every single player who has played for the Predators this season, and let me pull that one right up. Yes, if you look at every single one where these players have been have played this season, Nashville has had 8 players on this team that were drafted by them. 4 forwards, 4 defensemen. Now, out of those 8 players, 4 of them are forwards. Those 4 forwards are Colton Sissons, Juuso Parssinen, Yakov Trenin, and of course the other forward that has played that was a draftee was Eli Tolvanen. And those guys represent just 10 goals by those 4 Nashville draftees. And on defense, obviously, is where it gets a little bit better. You have Josi, Ekholm, Fabro. And Carrier, all drafted. And those guys represent 8 of those goals. So 18 goals by drafted players on this team, by the 8 drafted players out of 66 total goals. So that's only 27%. Now you look at, for the draftees, if you look at the points, out of 168 total points this team has scored so far this season, only 29% of them have been scored by players that were drafted by the Predators. That's just 49 points. So that's not good. Looking at free agents, the story's a little bit different. Obviously, they've got 18 players they've signed as free agents that have played this season. 25 out of the 27 goals scored by free agents were by the forwards. On defense, just two goals. For points, 53 of those 53 points were scored by the forwards, just 3 by defensemen. So that represents 38% of all the goals and 32% of all the points. Now again, think about this now. Yes, there are more players that came in as free agents, but a lot of these guys came as free agents, came in at like Mark Borowiecki, Zach Sanford, Kiefer Sherwood, Roland McCown, Kevin Gravel. Like those guys are ones that were signed, that were signed as free agents, and those guys don't have a ton of goals. So all this is being done really just by a handful of guys that are forwards that were free agents, namely Nino Niederreiter, Matt Duchene. So next, we look at the players that come over in trades. That's 7 players. So that's the least amount on this team. There were 8 draftees, 11 free agents. 23 goals were by players that were traded to the Nashville Predators, which is 35%. And 68 points by players that were traded. So that's 68. That's 41%. So breaking this down, I know I broke this. I talked a lot about this and went into some detail. But for goals, 73% of the goals from this team all come from players that weren't drafted by the Nashville Predators. And as for points, it's 73% or 72% of the points scored by Nashville players this season are by players that were not drafted by Nashville. Because remember, the guys that come in here, like Forsberg, he's technically a trade. But we look at the talent level on this team, and there have been 8 first round players, which is Forsberg, Duchesne, Granlund, Johansson, Niederreiter, Cody Glass, Mark Jankowski, Dante Fabro, Michael McCarron, Ryan McDonough, Eli Tolvanen. That's a lot of guys. I mean, that's 9 players that are first round talents that have played on this team so far. 9 of them, of those draftees, like they're all first round talents that either were drafted by Nashville or came to Nashville by a trade or free agency. And of course, they're the ones carrying the load. But you would think that a team with this many former first round players would be doing a little bit better. But right now, all the heavy lifting is being done by those top 2 lines. Which, if you look at those top 2 lines tonight, the only player in the top 6 that wasn't a first round pick was Colton Sissons, who was a second round pick. And they came up with pretty much nothing. In fact, the most successful line tonight was the line of Tanner Jeannot, Juuso Parssinen, and Yakov Trenin. Jeannot, as we know, was undrafted. Parssinen, a 7th rounder, and Yakov Trenin, a 2nd rounder. So that's where the production came from tonight for the Nashville Predators, or from those guys that came from the 7th, undrafted, or the 2nd round, which is not a great look. But let's move on some more. So again, 29th on the power play. Inexcusable. There is 0 movement on the power play on this team. It is not like the injuries have caused any issues with the power play. All the injuries so far, for the most part, have been limited to defensemen who are not playing on the power play. So they don't have the excuse of not having the right guys or not having the best players for it. They've got the best players out there on the power play. There's no movement. There's no deception. Everything is perimeter passing, maybe with a bumper, with Matt Duchesne at the bumper position. But it's surprising it's not surprising at all that they only have 15 goals on the power play. And I imagine a large amount of those are shots that were taken by Roman Josi or somebody from the perimeter that were deflected or tipped in. So they're not taking high percentage shots, and it's showing. Again, this is a coaching thing. How long did it take for Peter Laviolette's power play to look so bad before they finally made some changes on the coaching staff? That might have to be done sooner rather than later. On the penalty kill, yes, injuries have caused some issues. Those defensemen that have been injured were big mainstays on the penalty kill, but still 18th on the penalty kill. That's not helping your goaltender out at all. Again, let's move on some more. Just a few more things before we go about these coaching. Nashville is 29th in second period goals and 31st in third period goals. This team does not know how to handle the adversity when it comes later in the game. They don't know how to rally to score enough points to outgun these teams. A lot of these times these guys go up against these teams, and as soon as the other team gets 3 goals, it's almost an automatic loss for Nashville. I think they only have like three or four wins this entire season where the opponent scored 3 goals. Another thing against coaching, when they're trailing at the end of the first or second period, they're 5-14-0. This team has very little ability to be able to come back from a deficit. And that goes to coaching. What are these players doing? They're playing different. They're not playing conservative. By these points, if they are 5-14-0 when they're trailing, they should be playing more aggressive, and it's not working. They're tied for 3rd in the NHL in bench minors with 6 bench minors, all for too many men on the ice, which came at some pretty costly times in the last few games that we saw. Again, this is purely a coaching thing. Yeah, discipline, you could say that the player's been doing, but this is something that the coaching should be doing a much better job at fixing. And again, talking about this team's inability to be able to come back from a deficit, they are 3-7-1 when they're trailing first in the game. So when the opponent scores first, they've lost 8 times out of the 12 times that's happened. It's all these things and many, many more just point to a lot of failures. Obviously, you look at the makeup of the team and what the production's going. You talk about the mismanagement, utter and total mismanagement of players like Philip Tomasino and now the departed Eli Tolvanen, a former first-round pick. And it's hard to point at anything other than coaching and the front office decisions. Yes, the players aren't doing good, but all these players that had extremely great years last year were also had shooting percentages which were way above their career average. So obviously, you had to expect that at least some of these guys were going to come back down to earth, and unfortunately, almost all of them have. But if you look at this, these guys that have come in, Nashville can't develop anybody at forward. They can't develop scoring talent at forward, period. I mean, like, if you really, I mean, Juuso Parssinen has 3 goals, and he was a 7th round pick. You know, he's the newest rookie on the team, and he's got 3 of those goals. It's not great. It's not a great look by the player, the GM that's drafting these players. And then, you know, John Hines, when he gets a hold of these young players, we've seen these young players be the ones that have been punished the most in the lineup. You don't see any scratches by guys like Colton Sissons or Ryan Johansson or anybody else who's having a rough game that's a veteran. It's only those rookies. It's all those guys that have come in and played 2 or 3 games, or guys like Tolvanen and Tomasino. They haven't gotten a chance, but some of the veterans who have been around longer, who aren't performing as well as they should at all, are still getting way more chances. And honestly, we're getting to the point where Cole Smith, it's almost like a credit to the fact that he's a younger player that's gotten more time, because yeah, he hasn't contributed any goals so far, but it's getting hard pressed to find more than 2 or 3 guys on the Nashville Predators team that are playing better recently than he is, and which just shows how bad this team has looked. This team is not built for the playoffs. This team is not built to be buyers at the deadline. This team is not built to do anything other than look forward to possibly getting a lottery pick. And if that's the way that goes, then maybe it's a good thing in hindsight as we look back on it 2, 3, 4 years ago. They're a lottery pick. That means that they were truly a bad team. Changes probably had to happen, and will finally kickstart the Nashville Predators into finally admitting that they need to rebuild. Yes, they've got a lot of great pieces. They've got a great core, and they've got guys they really can't move. But what they're doing right now is not working. And at this point, with this team and the way that they're playing, I'm not sure even a Barry Trotz could come in here and turn this around. But I think if there's one reason that this team could turn around right now, it might have to be coaching, whether that be assistants for the special teams, whether that's head coaching, or maybe even with the removal of David Poile as general manager. Bill Haslam met with the board of executives today to talk about, future majority owner, and I can't believe that that's not a coincidence given the news with Eeli Tolvanen claimed by Seattle. I think there's a lot of change coming. We've said that a few times over the last few years. We said that in the last few years of Peter Laviolette's tenure. It's not been great. Something's going to happen. I've never been more positive that something is going to happen before the end of this season, because right now this team is frankly an embarrassment. And I know I went on for a while, Charlie, but I'm going to hand this back to you, because you know what? I'm like a lot of Predators fans. I'm real tired of watching this team.
I'm Crazy Charlie Saunier, captain of the Renegades of Puck. I'm also tired of the cold, tired of the dark, and tired of being landlocked. I'm also willing to bet that I'm not the only one who could use some sun, fun, and time in paradise with friends. That's exactly why I called our great friend Pete Weber. He told me, call Ships and Trips Travel, and now we're all going to Mexico. That's right, Renegades of Puck, July 15th to the 20th of 2023. Dreams Vallarta Resort in Puerto Vallarta is the destination to hang with Pete Weber in paradise. To join Pete and the Renegades of Puck in Puerto Vallarta, go to www.shipsandtripstravel.com. That's shipsandtripstravel.com, and just click on the ROP on vacation tab. Don't stay landlocked. Join the Renegades of Puck in paradise, July 15th to the 20th, 2023 in Puerto Vallarta. Pete Weber, the Renegades of Puck, and you. It's time to ditch those skates for flip-flops and fun in the sun. I made the reference earlier at the Nashville Predators. Right now, it kind of feels like they're feeding themselves into the wood chipper feet first. It is just painful right now to watch this team on offense. And yes, they locked it down defensively, and that sure was a delight to watch. But when you can't put a puck in the net, it's never going to end up in anything more than a 1-point overtime loss, 1-0. It's just as simple as that. The result tonight was a point. It should feel better than that. Going into St. Louis, earning a hard point on the road in a 1-0 overtime loss, usually that feels better than this. But something about this Nashville Predators team just doesn't feel right. Even when they're doing good things this last stretch of games, that last homestand, things didn't feel right. They were winning really ugly games. They were finding ways to win, and they're not finding ways to do anything right now. And I think what we're going to be talking about is people finding their ways to their next job location. I think it's time for the Nashville Predators to seriously sit down and consider making some changes, and I know for a fact that that's got to be happening behind the scenes with the new ownership group and the new everything that's coming into play here in the next short amount of time for this Nashville Predators franchise. Listen, they're going to sink to the bottom of this Central Division. St. Louis is a better team than they have been so far this season, so it's going to be the Nashville Predators competing with the Arizona Coyotes and the Chicago Blackhawks in the bottom third of the Central Division for nothing. I mean, I'm going to be here doing a show for all 82 games, so that doesn't make a difference what they're going to be competing for. But the fans are going to lose interest, and the money is going to stop coming in, and the buzz around the team is going to go away. And yes, some podcasts maybe even will stop broadcasting because they're starting to get bored with it. The 2017 honeymoon is long in the rearview mirror, and it is time for this franchise to start seriously considering what direction they want to go in. What is the mission statement for this team right now? I don't think anybody knows it, and I don't think anybody's preaching it. And honestly, I don't know that too many people care at this point. I feel like the team is somewhat rudderless at this moment in time. And until they start making some changes, I think a lot of the fan base is going to remain checked out. You've got two professional sports franchises and this team going through the same thing at the same time, except one of them happens to be in first place. It's funny how those things happen. A lot of pressure right now on this Nashville Predators team, and they got a game tomorrow night against one of the best teams in the NHL offensively, the Edmonton Oilers, who have owned the Nashville Predators. I hope the Nashville Predators have a better result, so we have a little bit more interesting thing to talk about tomorrow night. 26 games into the season, my good Renegades. We've got a hell of a long way to go. For all of the Renegades out there, for Sean C. Smith, for Ryan Bassett, each and every one of you, thank you so much. We sure do appreciate each and every one of you. I'm your host and Captain Crazy Charlie Saunier. Stick taps, love, and respect.